The first reading today is Watching My Friend Pretend Her Heart Isn't Breaking by Rosemary Watola Tromer. On Earth, just a teaspoon of neutron star would weigh 6 billion tons. 6 billion tons equals the collective weight of every animal on Earth, including the insects, times 3. 6 billion tons sounds impossible until I consider how it is to swallow grief. Just a teaspoon, and one might as well have consumed a neutron star. How dense it is, how it carries inside it the memory of collapse. How difficult it is to move then. How impossible to believe that anything could lift that weight. There are many reasons to treat each other with great tenderness. One is the sheer miracle that we are here together on a planet surrounded by dying stars. One is that we cannot see what anyone else has swallowed.
Thank you, Lynn. So sometime in my late teens or early 20s, I went to my great aunt Bernice. I was experiencing angst and sorrow of some kind, teenage angst, 20-something angst, some of the teaspoon of something heavy in my soul. And I went to Aunt Bernice to talk to her and get her advice. And she listened carefully and said, "Chip, go to church and find a wife." I was coming out of my Protestant phase at that time, considering leaving Christianity, not sure if I was an atheist and agnostic. I just knew I didn't like organized religion very much. So I kind of stared at her. I'm sure my mouth was open for a while, and gave a sort of nonverbal thanks anyway. I'm sure I gave her a hug. And a decade or so later, I found the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus, Ohio, and I helped found the young adult group there. And at one of our parties, I met Becky Marshall, and we had a party at her house soon thereafter for Groundhog Day. And we fell in love, and we got married in that church. So it turns out Aunt Bernice was right. Just a little bit of the timing was off, and the tradition. So this is, I think, a common story in human history. People have found a partner at church or at temple or synagogue or at the mosque. Sometimes it was because the village was so small that they already knew each other anyway. It wasn't that they were going to church to meet each other. They just happened to have some time together there. As we got bigger towns, as we had more varieties of religious expression, eventually, as we had more tolerance for varieties of sexual attraction, we needed other ways to seek, find, attract partners. And we've come up with a myriad of ways. This being the last Sunday before Valentine's Day and Evolution Weekend, because it's the last Sunday before Darwin's birthday, we're going to talk about love and science and technology and how they sort of mix and combine. We're going to talk about, has Zoom video conferencing made it easier for humans to attract, find, keep, love? Perhaps a little more generally, does technology help human relationships? I will start with a few caveats and axioms. I try to be sex positive. I affirm and promote healthy sexuality of any kind as long as there's enthusiastic consent. And if that consent is not enthusiastic, it is not consent. I think that love and science and sex and technology can be misused or abused, but it's still good in general, and the kinds I'm referring to today, unless otherwise spoken, I'm referring to the healthy, appropriate kinds. I absolutely stipulate that single life can be perfectly wonderful. You do not need to have some other kind of person in your life. I want to stipulate that asexuality and aromantic people are natural, normal, and welcome. I will not talk about any kind of science or technology that helps enforce monogamy. I leave that choice to the consenting adults that are involved. And I'm not going to talk about flirting with artificial intelligence robots, which is fascinating, but artificial intelligence and its challenges and opportunities, I hope, will be a service given by Jim Ward and Ben Tovar someday. And they'll do a better job than I, so I'll leave it to the professionals. I'll talk about human efforts to find, attract, and communicate with lovers, mates, and partners. So the finding part, again, you're in a village of 20 people, you know the couple of folks who are roughly your same age. It's pretty easy to find somebody at that point. But once they're bigger, once they're larger, sometimes you'd go to a matchmaker, someone to suggest the right kind of partner, the right families, the right positions, like the same football teams. Many of us probably at least met a romantic partner at some point or other at a bar or to church. How many of us met someone they love, maybe now, maybe before, at a church? Several. Fabulous. One of the technologies that human beings have used throughout the years is astrology, right? And there are a whole bunch of different kinds of astrology. There's different animal sets and different connections in many different parts of the world. That often is part of how we are searching for someone else. Becky and I were told that Scorpios and Sagittarius is a very bad choice. Do not at all costs. Upon learning that, we looked for other astrological capacities, and we discovered, numerology or something else that was, this is a good match. Okay, so we'll believe that one. People go to mixers to find other folks who are about their same age, who are interested in the same things. Speed dating. Has anyone done any speed dating? Or at least admit it? Perhaps. Online dating with algorithms scientifically proven to help you find your right mate, someone who will last and last. Is eHarmony better than your local matchmaker? It's possible. The algorithm does not know that she has bad breath. And the matchmaker knows how you've grown up and what things you've done and not done and how you've responded in the world. But you might tell the computer algorithm things that you didn't tell the matchmaker. And there is some science behind the questions they're asking. I know the time or two that I went to a computer dating service, I did find people that were interesting to me. I don't think there are any reliable statistics kept on how matchmakers have done or how eHarmony has done, at least that are available to me anyway. It's possible technology has helped us in that realm. I was talking to my sister about how human beings attract mates for this conversation, and I was suggesting there are perfumes and, again, computer dating and these kind of things, and she said, I always relied on the little black dress as my favorite technology. I said, yes, that comes under displays. Whether you go out dressed in your finest, whether you go out dressed in the clothes of your sports team, whether you have big muscles or the right colors, there are displays that we humans make that attract other people. I mean, there are displays that all sorts of animals make, right? We see peacocks and all sorts of things. But human beings do this too. And we wear perfume, and we go to the right people and get spells and charms for a very long time. You carry the right herbs in your pocket. You wear a little sachet around your neck that has the right stones in it. That's going to attract the right people into your life. Sometimes we get an app that tells us when someone is interested and is nearby. That seems more effective than the sachets and charms, at least for a particular kind of human interaction. Perfumes have been used for millennia. Only recently have we actually gotten to the point where we can use pheromones. We know how to sort of find the right human pheromones and put them in a bottle and wear them on our body. And underneath the conscious mind, our target says, come over here. That's the kind of technology. And coaches. There are the healthy and the less healthy. The less healthy coaches you can pay money to, who will teach you how to be a real man, an alpha male, and attract women, and use such things as negging them, and going up and deliberately saying something mean about them so that they want to prove you wrong and play into their unhealthy daddy issues. That's the kind of technology. It's not very healthy. There are healthier coaches that talk about coming up with clarity and being confident while not arrogant. That's a way of attracting. Confidence is a thing that attracts people of all kinds of genders. I think in many ways at this point, the classics are still successful. Perfumes and confidence. But, new technology, pheromones, coaching, all this stuff seems to be helping. All this seeking and attracting leads to actually communicating with people, with objects of our affection. So one of the earlier forms, now I'm going to stay here. I want a little bit of praise for not talking about smoke signals with the children. I realized that telling them that you can communicate by starting fires was a poor choice. And now that we're responsible adults, I can talk about it. That is a way of communicating. As far as I can tell, they were never used as smoke signals to talk about love, more about danger. But it's a thing. Hand signals, winks, nods, turn of a head, flip of a hair, all sorts of body language is a way of communicating with human beings. When you're not physically present quite yet, though. So the Victorians had this fascinating calling card process. This is, I think, where the business cards come from to this day, right? So you would stop by and leave your calling card, and had very careful, had to be the right size, had to have the right type on it. If you ever come across the book, Our Deportment, or the Manner, Conduct, and Dress of the Most Refined Society, You might find the paragraph, "To the unrefined or unbred, the visiting card is but a trifling and insignificant bit of paper, but to the cultured disciple of cultural law, it conveys a subtle and unmistakable intelligence. Its texture, style of engraving, even the hour of leaving it, combine to place the stranger whose name it bears in a pleasant or disagreeable attitude, even before his manners, conversation, and face have been able to explain his social position." The size of the card, the font used, the lack or addition of adornment. If you're a man, you want just your name. You don't want Mr. ahead of it. If you're a doctor, I suppose you want to put doctor on it. You don't put cartoons or pictures or any other stuff unless it's a holiday, in which case you make them up special for that. All of this was extraordinarily regimented. And it's not always assumed that you'd actually get to meet the person who you're attending there. You just leave the card with the butler or the maid who had a special silver plate that you put it on, of course. And even if all you were doing was stopping by and leaving the card so they knew you were there and they could contact you later, there were customs about how to do that, so that if you were there to congratulate them for some reason, you would bend the left-hand upper corner. And if you were there to express condolences, it was the left-hand lower corner. And if you were taking leave and going on a long trip and wouldn't be around for a while and so wouldn't be there to receive their call in return, you would do the right-hand lower corner. I don't honestly know how they kept track of all of this. Communication is a little easier these days. And how many of us have ever given some thought, at least, to how quickly to return a phone call or send a text after a date? We can overthink these things a little bit and read into them, right? Phone calls were the standard as I grew up. Now many are appalled at the idea that someone would phone them out of the blue. Texts are the preferred method of communication for many. Email sometimes is useful, and of course that says not just the body, the message, but the signature line, the colors, the fonts you've used. All of that communicates about who we are in the world and why that person wants to get close to you. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever app kids these days are using that I'm too old and unhip to know about. WhatsApp, Slack, Discord, video conferencing such as Cisco, WebEx, Zoom, Microsoft Teams. How many of you saw Ken Burns' documentary on the American Civil War? A number of us. Much of that documentary's power came from letters that soldiers sent home to their loved ones. And it really strikes me, they would pour out their feelings onto the page with a hope that someone would actually get that letter weeks or months later. And weeks or months later, they might get a reply or not. Nowadays, you've got soldiers on cell phones talking to their family every day and maybe getting a Zoom call weekly so they watch their children grow up in ways that never happened to soldiers before. I think that's quicker for sure. It's also more raw and less filtered, and I wonder if it leads to more fear or more stress in the adults. I don't know. Zoom. The first video conference I ever participated in was 30 years ago. It was new technology then. We needed a whole room expressly designed for that experience. It was expensive and precious. I was lucky to be a part of it and knew better than to goof around or use it for non-business, but to sit in the corner and be quiet, which is unlike me. And I still noticed on the other end of the call, states and states away, who was more or less my age, who might be single, who might be interested. And eventually, when it became a little more common, we might get on a little early and chat with those folks, or stay on later and have at least a word or two. Hey, we're going to come to this meeting sometime. When I was on the General Assembly Planning Committee, we used Zoom all the time. I learned how to use the private message feature. I was already married at this time, so I was no longer flirting, but I was definitely deepening existing friendships and making new ones through this remarkable technology. And now Zoom has photo filters and your choice of background. You can change your name. You can communicate a great deal about who you are and what you want in the world, even in business meetings. I do think that technology is making it easier to find, attract, and communicate with potential partners. And even with improved technology, it still comes down to this: we are hairless apes with powerful feelings and just enough self-awareness to know that we have a limited time on this planet. We experience these impulses, these fears, these ideals, these dreams, and we want people with whom to share them. It is hard to be a human being. It is differently hard to be a human in community. Of course, we used our brains to find ways to survive and cope and meet others. Science has helped us produce remarkable technologies. But those technologies merely help us to focus and enhance the human connection, which is our deepest longing and our greatest strength. The key is taking that leap, being willing to venture across the divide, sharing with the world the compassion, the courage, the idiosyncratic, messy, wonderful, unique, vulnerable, and immensely powerful beating heart at the center of your soul. Let us absolutely celebrate science. Let us celebrate the scientific method. Let us celebrate technology, and let us celebrate the animating principle beneath all of it: giving, receiving, and embodying love. So may we be. And maybe we'll use this interesting technology, this Zoom technology, to discuss these ideas in community in an hour or so. More details later.